In 2010, the Columbus Academy developed a vision for how to use technology to better enhance teaching and learning. We call that Vision 2015. Broadly, Vision 2015 includes the things here: allowing 24/7 reflective access to curriculum, expanding learning outside the four walls of the classroom, and teaching students to better use the tools today. We're going to see some examples of that. We have wonderful examples of this vision playing out throughout the school, across grade levels, across disciplines. Before we get started, I want to thank you guys for providing us with an amazing tool set. We have laptops, we have iPads, we have projectors, we have smartboards. We have really a dream situation at Columbus Academy with the types of tools we get to employ for our students' learning. And I also want to say that I've been to see the best schools in the country. I have never seen a faculty engage with those tools the way that our faculty has engaged with them. They are unbelievable. I'm going to hand it off here really quickly because we don't have very much time. First up, we're going to have Vanessa Taglia talk to you. She's a third grade teacher at Columbus Academy.
Thank you, Sean. And thank you for taking the time to meet with me this morning, everybody. I do teach in the lower school. And when I arrived on campus, this is my 4th year at Columbus Academy, I was blown away by the infrastructure. Sean mentioned a little bit about the network accessibility that we have, some of the hardwares and softwares that he's been investing in, and that's thanks to the support of you. So I just wanted to thank you one more time before I get started here. The theme that I'm going to be talking about is educating for the future, and I purposely made the backdrop of this space because it's kind of the unknown, right? You're sending your kids to Columbus Academy, hoping that they'll be leaders and contributors in a society, and we don't know what it's going to look like. It's changing so quickly. And in order to differentiate my time with you, I wanted to invite you. Some of us are perfectly comfortable chiming in, speaking up, hollering out at me. You're welcome to do that. If you're more comfortable opening up your laptop, cell phone, or other mobile device, I invite you to join this back channel discussion. If you type in this URL, https://todaysmeet.com/PACA, it's sort of like a private chat room that I started for us this morning. If you have any questions that come to mind, or if you just have a wondering about something that comes up today, I invite you to post it there, and I'll respond today. By sometime around 3:30, I'll take a look at those, and by tonight, you'll have an answer or a comment from me. And I'm sure that Laura or any of the other people presenting today would be happy to entertain any of your questions. So I'm just going to leave that up there for a second while I get started. So as a teacher, I kind of feel like I was sitting in my classroom one day, and one of those rescue helicopters came and dropped iPads into my classroom, and the possibilities were endless. And as I got to thinking about, okay, how do I want to start? What do I want to do here? One thought came to mind. It was kind of the singularity of my mind explosion, if you will, given this space theme I have going on. This kid was me, the one in the classroom who was like, why are we doing this? What's the point? What are we learning here? Can I just get to the main idea and move on, please? And those happen to be my favorite kids in my class, because there's the ones asking questions, right? They're making me think, they're making me have this conversation back and forth. And I decided, okay, I'm gonna figure out a way to use these iPads so that is the nature of our school day together. It starts with the questions. And something that fazed me is that in order to start with the questions, I needed to figure out a different way to deliver the information. The idea of lecturing in front of a group of kids is very important. Understanding and processing through the basic information is very important, and a lot of thought goes into the scope and sequence of the curriculum that we're delivering. But in order for kids to get to the point where they're questioning, analyzing, creating, and some of those higher order critical thinking skills, I decided that technology was going to be the answer. And so in order to meet the needs of this kid, that kid who is wanting to ask questions and wanting to have this back and forth dialogue in the classroom, we came up with a solution. And it incorporated the use of iPads and QR codes. If you've never seen a QR code, you might find them anywhere. I've even been walking through the aisles of Target and I come upon a product and it says right there on the shelf, scan this QR code for a $1 coupon on this item. I was pretty blown away by that. So iPads give us this capability to get the young ones to a place on the internet safely and quickly by scanning these QR codes. Instead of having to type in this web address that's a mile long at times when you're trying to get to an academic resource, they tend to be very long. We're able to have the kids access what we want really quickly by scanning the QR code. And what we did is we flipped the classroom starting with math. So instead of me using the class time, having the kids listen to my lecture, I pre-recorded my math lectures 5 minutes or less, so it made me be more thoughtful about what I was saying. And the students would watch these videos as the homework assignment. So now the direct instruction is happening at home, and it repurposed our school time together. As they would watch these videos, they would be assigned and asked to complete a couple sample problems and to write a question. Here we go, we're back at questioning. What did you understand? What was clear? What are you wondering? What wasn't clear? So that when they walk in the classroom the next day, we are no longer starting with the basic level of them listening to me and at best understanding me. We're starting with their questions so that we can move to the analysis and the application and the creating. And it would look something like this. This would be a homework sheet that would go home, and it set into motion these opportunities for kids to be viewing these videos. This is an example of a screen flow video that I had recorded. It was on a geometry concept of transformations where students are thinking about flips, slides, and turns. And it's generally a slideshow, and I'm talking about it. There I am. And being that they're young, we try to keep them short. But what gets really interesting is when I get feedback from the kids. This is a student who watched one of my videos, and instead of just responding to their level of understanding about one of the videos they had watched, they created a video back to me. And this blew my mind. Here's why. It was unassigned. I didn't tell this student, please show your level of understanding in this way. It just is one example of the engagement. One thing that I started noticing instantly is the kids were spending more time connecting and being immersed in the curriculum that I was hoping to cover with them. So here's a student when we were trying to cover a concept of lattice multiplication. It's the new way of multiplying. You know, we used to put the zero and carry. Now we talk about partial products and place value. So that when this child came back to school the next day, I wasn't about to sit down and talk to them about how to multiply. I was going to sit down with them and we were going to think about word problems. When in life are you going to need to use this? Let's talk about how we need to scope out the area of the playground so that we can plan for the new blacktop covering surface so we can get an estimate from the construction company. Something like that, just trying to come up with some real world, purposeful, tangible, memorable classroom experiences so that these students who had reached a level of understanding could do something with it. Picasso had this saying that really stuck with me. He once said, computers are useless, they only give us answers. And as a teacher, I think that that gives us a great sense of responsibility here. We're not using the technology so that students are robots just sucking in information and not doing anything with it. I think the idea here is that the iPads have kicked off a discussion, this classroom experience, where now the real learning starts after you've done something on the computer and then we come together. This station in my classroom is kind of my most proud place. It's the idea of having students utilizing the technology that's been given to us to reach these higher arches of the taxonomy of thinking. If you were to think of basic understanding as the groundwork, and then we work up to the precipice, which is creation. That's sort of like my ultimate goal, the place where I want all kids to be, is the idea to think and analyze and to be resourceful. And it looks like this. It's when the kids are independently using these resources and engaging with each other and engaging with me, because it sort of has changed my role as a teacher. Now, instead of just sitting up in front of the classroom and talking and delivering the information, I'm now interacting and facilitating these discussions and problem-solving opportunities with the kids. And the thing that I love best about this picture is this chart stand here. I don't know if you notice, if I were to estimate, I would say there's at least 90 Post-it notes on that chart stand. Those are student questions that they posed and we answered. And I feel like I always reflect on this instance. When I was tutoring a 4th grader, we were working on order of operations. There were some pretty expansive pre-algebra problems where we're talking about parentheses, exponents, multiplication, addition, subtraction. And I'm working with this 4th grader who was in the class of a colleague of mine that I'm quite close with. But when I was helping them remember PEMDAS, she looked at me and she said, "That's not how our teacher said it." And I had this moment, I'm like, parents probably have this experience every day with homework, where they're trying to explain it in the language, in the way that was taught to them, and maybe the teacher had a slightly different mnemonic device or some way of having the student remember it. And I just got to thinking that these videos would not only be useful for the kids to help them retain the information, but it might be resourceful for parents to use similar language when they're working with their children, or when the tutor is going to be working with the children on homework and stuff like that. So this idea of that question board is something that I'm also proud of, because I think that we need an outlet for kids to be able to have the discussion continue after they do something at home or with a tutor or something like that. And I always come back to my friend, the kid who's questioning. I really think that this technology has kicked off not only questioning amongst the kids, but as a teacher, I know it's made me start to question the what, the why, and the how of everything we're doing. So again, I just want to thank you for giving us this brilliant resource. It's been so much fun. I've enjoyed this journey. And now you're going to get to hear a little bit about what's going on in middle school.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Laura Miller. I'm an 8th grade social studies teacher as well as the yearbook advisor, and I'm going to be presenting with Todd Martin, who teaches 8th grade science, as well as being our 8th grade team leader. And what we wanted to share with you today is actually a very shortened version of what we just presented at the ISAC's regional conference last week in St. Louis. And the title of it, you can see, is Transforming Teaching and Learning with an iPad One-to-One Program, which fits perfectly into the theme of what we're talking about today. We really do believe that having access to these devices, not only for ourselves, but for our students, it has transformed the way that we teach and the way that our students learn. So an overview of the presentation would be that I kind of replicated my iPad up there on the screen, and we were able to, with a bunch of teachers in the room, go through, zoom into each app that we use and talk a lot about how we teach, how our students learn, and how we assess their work, and how it really allows us to communicate with our students in a new and interesting and innovative way. So we're just going to give you a very shortened version of that today. I wish we had more time to share all of the different examples and student videos, but hopefully we can give you just a little bit of a taste or a glimpse into our classrooms.
I guess when we first got the iPads in middle school, in 8th grade in particular, we were wondering if, where should we go MacBooks, should we go MacBook Air, should we get iPads? Now that we've actually had the iPads, I think it's been a wonderful decision, mainly because when students have the iPads in the room, it's just a part of the class now. I actually was thinking back with the last couple weeks, and they're so unintrusive. You can walk into my classroom and on the desk you'll see a textbook open, you'll see a binder open, and then you'll be the iPad as well, all as part of the desk. Sometimes I get laptop carts in the room and all the kids open up laptops, all of a sudden it becomes 16 cubicles. and the kids are kind of locked in behind their screens. So that's been wonderful that it's become part of my class. It hasn't replaced my class, it's enhanced it. And we use them as needed, and some days they're on their desk and we don't use them, the same way they don't use a calculator every day, or they don't use a red pen every day, but they have it there. The other nice thing about the iPads has been that it's an all-in-one device. Obviously, we've given them wireless access, so they have access to all of the knowledge ever sitting there in front of them. So how do we harness that in class? Just in yesterday's class alone, I had students that were using Notability to take their classroom notes. Some of them, some weren't, but most were. They were taking pictures of diagrams I drawn on the board, so it was their camera. And then I did a demonstration, and then all of a sudden, boom, 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 their iPads all became their video cameras. They're like, can I record this? Can I record this? I want to show my parents. I want to show my brother. And so they had their camera, they had their video camera, they had their notebook. And then I have one class where a student, she somehow made herself the fact checker of the classroom. And every time I say something, she's instantly typing into a search and saying, well, actually, that started in 1962, and you said 1963. But it's wonderful. She usually uses it to check vocab and she uses it for herself, but I also know she keeps me on my toes. Most of those stories I used to make up I can't use. The fact that they're portable. In 8th grade, I'm using them in the lab, but now we have these wonderful cases for them, so they're protected. They're not breaking. They do drop, but now they don't break, and they're pretty durable, and they're just so flexible. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, so I just wanted to give you one example of a project that we do in my classroom that I think iPads have really allowed for a lot of creativity with. So scrolling in the background, you're going to see examples of student work from my classroom. And it's interesting because it's kind of your typical social studies project, right? It's a timeline. It's taking a series of dates, it's putting them in order, it's describing them so that you understand them, and then kind of keeping that as a resource for the rest of the quarter. That could sound kind of boring. The way that I made it more exciting and interesting for the kids is that I presented them with this information and I said, you can use whatever app you would like to create your timeline. It can be any color you like, you can add pictures, you can add videos, be creative with it. And they were. If you see these behind me, they use all different types of apps. In fact, the list that I included up there, those are just some of them. And overall, I think I had 17 different apps that students used to create these timelines. And that was great, because not only did it allow them creativity, I had one student who actually created what she called the Game of War. This is about the Vietnam War. And it looked like a game board and moved and twisted. It's very cool using Prezi. But it makes sense that the kids were able to create something that they were going to use as a resource for their own learning in a way that visually made sense to them. This is something that they're allowed to use the rest of the quarter when they need to take notes. Sometimes they're allowed to use it for in-class essay exams, things like that. Why should they have to create a timeline that fits into one kind of linear black and white structure if that's not the way that they think? So I was really impressed with everything that they were able to create. And I think the coolest thing for me as a teacher, it was very easy for me to assess as well. A lot of times, when you talk to teachers about using iPads, they're concerned when they see this giant list of apps up there and it can be overwhelming. But the kids are experts in these things. The kids know how to use these things. And even if I don't know how to use all of these different apps perfectly, I don't even need to, because either the kid can explain it to me, and the kids love that opportunity to teach a teacher, or they can send me all of these timelines either with a link or just an attachment to an email. So this is, I think, a good example of a very simple project, a very classic social studies or history project that with an iPad suddenly became much more interactive, much more engaging, and something that the kids really enjoyed creating and were proud of beyond just turning it in, and they were able to use that as a resource for the rest of the quarter.
I'm sure most of you are familiar with Moodle, and in middle school, most homework assignments and daily quizzes are posted on the Moodle calendar, and my class is no different. My Moodle page has a calendar at the top that I actually link. 2 years ago, I was super excited about this. Moodle, yay! I can post all of my class resources on here. So I uploaded my keynotes and class notes and quiz reviews, and when I look at it now, I just see that it's a list. It's just a list of links. And it's a great resource for kids to access, but now with the iPads, we can take that, not even to the next step, but I'd say 5 steps further. So usually kids come into class and they'll access their documents on Moodle. That's kind of their starting point. But now with the iPads, they're available instantaneously, And with iBooks, I've recently taken a lot of the resources I have on my Moodle page and created an interactive textbook. So instead of the kids just seeing it as links on their page, I've created a lab manual. Just show you some of that. So the students simply download this to their iBooks. I just have to send it like an attachment. I actually have a link on my Moodle page for this. And when the kids access, they have the same access they would on Moodle. They have, I embed YouTube videos. I embed the keynotes that I used to have in class. They're on there. There's interactive images. Show an example of. So for example, that's a set. If they click on that, that would open up as a keynote, and that's the actual class notes. It's guided class notes that we use in class. The students now have it as a book. It's very simple to update. Every unit, I just add a new chapter to the book. There's actually copies of the PDFs of the classwork we do. And it was about a week ago, I had a student come to class, and he had, we were going to be doing balancing equations. And that was the next chapter that I had them download. And the next day he came to class, and he had a full sheet of equations balanced. And I said, he said, can you check these? And I was like, sure, we're going to do that in 2 days. Where'd you get this? And he's like, oh, I read your iBook, and I figured out how to do it. And he's like, I just want to know if I'm right. And I said, I just wanted to pick him up and hug him and squeeze him and call him George. And I was like, I love you. You actually read this stuff? Where I've had those same links on Moodle for years, but kids don't click on them because it's just a link and the title looks boring. But now they can actually see it and interact with it, and that's been fabulous. When we do our longer presentation, I mean, there's the fact that the students can actually send us things using Dropbox, and we can edit and assess their work in real time and get it back to them. It's just, I know Laura and I can speak for both of us, it's transformed how we do our class. It's the same curriculum, but it's more engaging, and we can do it at a faster pace, and I truly believe we can differentiate in a way that it meets the kids where they're at, and yet also takes the kids that really get it, and we can push them further. So thankful for all the support of the devices, allowing us to have these devices. I feel spoiled rotten to be able to use these things. And when we do present in other places, there's always either teachers or administrators from other schools that come up afterwards and say, not so much, wow, you have iPads, because there's a lot of independent schools that have iPads, but they're like, how did you get to here? Like, we gave them their iPads, we don't know what to do with them. Like, how do you guys do this? And it's part of the professional development and a wonderful technology department and giving us time and funding to actually play with this stuff and figure it out and make stuff that's useful for your kids. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm John Compton. I teach history in the upper school. I teach 10th grade and 11th grade, and I have an interesting experience because the sophomore class, of which my daughter is a member, they got the iPads this year. I don't know if any of you have sophomores. My daughter was frankly, give me a laptop. I don't want the iPad. And so I've been taking the approach of how can I make this iPad, how can we introduce them to it, make them see that it is a tool, that it's not going to be an onerous, oh, we have to do it this way. So one of the things I have done, and by the way, I have a seventh grade boy who's got an iPad and he loves it, and we're constantly saying, get off the computer, and he's like, Mom, I'm doing my homework. He's like, oh, okay, well, keep at it then. I went to a tech conference for iPad training in Marion this summer, and one of the things they showed us was something called Nearpod. And so in my world history class, we've been talking about revolutions, the American Revolution, French Revolution, Latin American revolutions, and now we're looking at the Arab Spring. And so one of the things we do is the Nearpod is basically, it's a presentation tool that I can share with them so that they can basically see the information. It includes videos. It's interactive, so they can watch a 3 or 4 minute video, and then there'll be some questions over it. So much like Vanessa and others have talked about, when they come into the classroom, we're not dealing with what happened. We're not dealing with just the who, what, when, where. We can start talking about where's this going? How are these issues similar to the American Revolution or the French Revolution? And so we'll wrap up the unit with a simulation in which they have to advise the State Department or the President, what should be our policy with Syria? Who should we bomb or not bomb? Who should we support? Who should we give money to? What are the different groups? And so we get to those higher levels of thinking rather than just understanding what happened. So Nearpod, you can see this is my screen, that's Sean's screen, so we can click over and we can start with a basic question. So if they're doing this at home, they can type in what they know about the Arab Spring. I get that, and so I know where we're starting from. Okay? The other thing that's cool about this is they can put their names in and register, or I can give them a student ID, and they can respond anonymously. So if we want to have something where we're having a discussion, and let's say it gets into matters of politics and religion, and folks want to say stuff that they're not sure the majority will agree with, they can enter that, we can put it up there, and we can have a discussion about it without everyone looking at so-and-so and wondering why they think that way. So I think it's great for differentiation, but also it blends into our talk about diversity. How can we get all those perspectives into the classroom? So, if click, this should be a New York Times video popping up on Sean's. And this is here's one of those where we blend this with ethics. This is a copyrighted video, so I can't just download it into this, all right, because that would be unethical. So now we link to it. Here's the problem though, I can't skip the ad, so all the students now want to buy this brand of car. And so, that's one of the things I'm still working through. How do I get the right videos that fit the needs, but that I can actually, instead of link to, that I can actually upload into the video. So there you go, an Acura RLX. So we'll see how that goes. Then we can start asking some questions. So they watch this video, and I can now check and see, did they get the information? But again, I can do this in class, or I can send it home with them. So I just, I know Robert needs to get up here, and I have a class to go to that people are paying for me to teach. And so this is one of those things where I think it's a nice entree for these sophomores who are a bit more hesitant about using the iPad. They've gotten used to their laptops, which they can watch this on a laptop too. But it's great when they can, there's a feature on there where I can give them a map or something, say draw this, and so they can interact with it. It becomes part of their way of thinking rather than just information that I've presented. So thank you very much. Like I said, I'm on kind of that front wave of this. I'm still dealing with kids who this is new to, but they're taking to it. And I think more and more, it's going to just become, as Todd said, part of the upper school kind of culture. So, thank you.
Well, I'm Robert Russell. I teach geometry in the upper school. We looked last year at some geometry books that were on the iPad. There were 3 choices, and I sort of picked the lesser or the better of the ones that were there. I wasn't very happy with it, but I thought I really needed to jump in and see what it was like to teach with an iPad. And the book that we got replaced this, so the students don't have to carry this in their backpack anymore. And the more I've been teaching out of this iPad textbook, I'm beginning to like it more and more. Okay, what I wanted to do today was to just show you what today's lesson was going to be like. So today we're doing bisectors of triangles. I have a modified flipped classroom, and the students would have looked at this last night. They would have gone through this particular section, and embedded in this are several videos. And this video, they range from anywhere from 4 to 5 minutes long, and there are about 3 or 4 in each section. So I asked the students to go through the videos, learn what's being presented here, and then after they've done these videos, there are guided practice problems. and there are maybe 8 to 12 of these problems, and I'll ask them to do most of these usually the night before. They come into class, and the first thing they do when they come into class, they have their daily checkup. And I will ask them questions about the videos, I will ask them questions about these guided practice problems. And they might be even the identical problems. Then in class, what we will do is we will go through, these are what were traditionally homework problems. We will now work on these in class. And I can work the classroom. The students can ask questions about any problems that they might have trouble with. If they were working on these at night, they would most likely just stop working and then come into class the next day and ask questions. Here, I can find out exactly what they're having trouble with, and I can work them through any difficulties that they will have. What I can also do is I can do more engaging activities in class. And in this particular section, we're looking at different bisectors and triangles. I will have a variety of worksheets that they will work on, and we will still do compass, straight edge constructions, and we will do more in-depth investigations that normally would have taken a little bit more time, and we wouldn't have been able to do that. Also in this textbook, in each of these chapters, there are embedded quizzes that the students can take. Here we are. They're ready to go on quizzes. And these will be anywhere from 12 to 20 problems that the students can take and they can retake. And the iPad will grade those for them. It will show them what they did wrong, and they can retake this over and over again. And when they're doing this in the classroom, through the Wi-Fi, their results are being recorded into my computer. So I have a data collection of exactly how many times it took them to take the quiz and how well they did. And so it gives me another way that I can do an assessment for these students. Okay? Thank you.
Because of the time, that's all we'll do today. There are examples like these all across the school. Thank you very much for taking the time to see what we have to show.
Thank you so much. Can we have a round of applause for that? Great. And how tickled are you guys that your kids get to go to school like this?